Hello from Hootsuite headquarters in Vancouver. Welcome to this episode of HootLive. Today we're doing an after the webinar Q&A covering social ads. My name is Cameron Uganic, Senior Director of Growth Marketing and Education at Hootsuite. For those of you that didn't join us on the webinar that we just had, we're chatting with Vic Cambley, Regional Head of Facebook. Vic, welcome to the show.
You. Happy to be here.
And Carolina Rivera, Director of Paid Media at Mediative.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show. They just came off the webinar, and there was a little bit of drama because it was the first webinar that I think we've ever done on Hootsuite that we had a fire alarm. So for those of you that were listening, I'm sure you didn't catch it because I was listening and you couldn't catch it at all, but you guys were super smooth in terms of just ignoring the alarm, the dogs barking. So thanks for being troopers.
It's also funny in that you hear the word fire alarm thrown around so much in a professional context.
Yes.
To actually have a fire alarm.
Yeah, it's a true fire alarm.
That's
it's
exciting.
A little piece of it, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah, it's good. Keep you on your toes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll include a link in the comments to the webinar. If you weren't listening in, you'll definitely have a chance to click that link and register for it, and you'll be able to play it. There's some really great stuff in that webinar. But this is your chance to ask the experts. There was a lot of questions that we were able to cover, but many, many more that we weren't on the webinar, so we want to cover them here for a few minutes, about 15 minutes we'll do that. So this is your chance. Get in the comments. Type away whatever questions you have around social ads, and we'll ask our experts here. And we actually have a little surprise. We've got a Hootswag kit for one member who has a question that we'll pick randomly at the end. So make sure that you're doing that. The other thing that I ask is if there's friends of yours that you know will have questions around social ads or can have maybe use some knowledge around social ads. I know a lot of social media marketers around the world are trying to figure this out. It's on their plans for this year. Make sure you tag them in the comments as well, because obviously as all Facebook Live, this will be recorded and you can watch it later. So I think we should just jump in and get into some of the questions. Actually, before that, I do want to give some context to people that weren't listening to the webinar. So if there was one key takeaway, one main point that you made on the webinar, what do you think that would be, Carolina?
Make sure that you know the goal that you're trying to achieve when you start a campaign. You need to know.
Yeah.
Where are you going?
Yeah, and I like the point that you made around making sure that's tied to your business objectives as
100%.
well. It's really important, especially if you're now spending money as a social team. And how about you, Vic? What was the main thing?
She took mine.
Sorry.
Probably, I just really want to impress on people just the idea of scale and time and how much of that is now spent on, within our family of apps and products and the opportunity that actually provides for marketers and advertisers to reach their customers in an authentic way on the platform with ads that actually drive impact and are contextual.
Yeah, what I like about Facebook is you guys are constantly coming up with new products from an advertising perspective.
Oh, yeah.
And I think what I've asked my team to do is you have to always be testing those things. And so you have to leave aside some of your budget to leave room for that. Because a lot of those new things are where there are opportunities, where there's not a lot of other advertisers on those products.
Yeah, and there's always benefits to first mover advantage
Exactly.
on anything as well. So,
Exactly.
Yeah, point taken.
So Carolina, for you, first question that we have from our audience is, should we be using the same ads across all our channels?
Well, what I will always recommend is to keep a consistent message, that's for sure. I mean, the ad, in essence, it's going to have to be different in the sense that even for paid search, we have some character limitations that we have to comply with. But once you know what the strategy that you have and where you want to go and what you want to communicate with your client, I think you have to tailor the ads to the channel that you are leveraging. Just for instance, when we're talking about the notion of buyer personas, I know that in Facebook, I can have this segmentation that already gives me an idea of who am I talking to. So I have a great opportunity to leverage the asset, and talk to that persona. So in that sense, I will have different ads, but with the same essence in the message.
Anything to add to that, Vic?
No, I think she nailed it. The only compliment I would put on that as well is just the ability to test as well. And not in the sense of test one, stop, and then start your second test as well as actually test stuff at the same time. Allocate budget to it, figure out what works, and then for lack of a better word, blow that up. But no, Carolina nailed that.
Yeah, and I think that's a paradigm shift for a lot of marketers. I've been doing it for a long time, and I think that it takes a while for us to get over the hump to think about it doesn't cost a lot to produce these ads.
Yeah.
And you really do need to be thinking about having lots of different options, run them all at the same time, and Facebook really helps you in terms of picking that winner. A lot of the times that happens automatically on Facebook, so you just need to have a lot of options there. In terms of Vic, you talked a lot about social video. Video is huge on Facebook right now. How should video content on Facebook and Instagram differ from, say, YouTube or other platforms?
Yeah, video is a big bet for the company. Mark's been on record saying that Facebook is, transforming itself to a video-first company. So there's going to be a significant amount of further investment and announcements that people will be seeing about that, both from a customer standpoint, but also for businesses itself. Video is also nuanced on Facebook with the way it's currently delivered. When you think about, let's take YouTube for example. When you think about the delivery of video on YouTube, for lack of a better word, it's forced.
Mm-hmm.
So I sometimes actually listen to podcasts on YouTube. There's a Malcolm Gladwell podcast, which I think he's actually stopped doing for some reason, which I used to listen to all the time, and I had to watch an ad, whether it was a 30-second or 15-second, or I had the 5-second out on it. I was forced to watch that before I was able to progress. And at the very least, I'm aware after some time of what's actually going on.
Yeah.
Facebook, Instagram, they're feed-based mediums. So essentially what you're looking for is a couple of things. You're looking for creative that's effectively thumb stopping. That's like the moniker that I like to use for it. It's something that's provocative enough that's going to make your thumb stop and say, wait a second, what was that?
And that has to happen very quickly. Like that's you got a second. Right?
Yeah, it's like you've got 1, maybe 3 seconds at the most to do it. And then the other thing that we're really pushing creatives to think about is how to do that in a way that works with the sound off as well. Because that's the other kind of nuance with the creative on the video creative on Facebook is in its current state, it's a sound off creative. So it's how do you capture that attention with the sound off? And there's tons of great examples of that for inspiration that are available. Yeah,
I saw a great one on usually it's the media properties that I think are really embracing this new medium. So BBC had a great video that was talking about Socrates and sort of philosophy, and you would think it's somewhat of a dry topic, but what they did was spend, you could tell, some production dollars on the animation. So you don't need sound, but the animation is beautiful, and in its own right is sort of telling the story. And I'm really looking forward to the different types of mediums this will create on Facebook, of different kinds of videos. So Carolina, another question that we have from the audience is how often should I be visiting my campaigns to review? Like how often should they? Is that a daily, weekly cadence?
I would say review them as often as you can. I mean, you might have some campaigns that. Depending on your audience size, that you might have to wait a little bit just to collect some data, but I mean, we review them as often as possible. That's the frequency. It's everything, right? You might learn so many things that happen at certain times that you don't want to miss them.
Yeah, so you're kind of watching them all the time.
Yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah. Okay, so for Vic, how do you use social ads to increase your brand awareness? Should we look for users that show interest in similar products and industries?
Yeah, so the general rule of thumb that I like to talk to the advertisers that I work with is if you're looking to do a brand awareness campaign, you should be looking at least 9 million impressions with what you're doing. So use that as your framework. If you want to really get a bang for your buck out of your brand awareness campaign, like that's kind of the threshold that.
So you're doing your targeting, but you're making sure you're not going below that 9 million threshold?
Yeah, and inevitably, the CPMs and the way that the platform actually works will spit out a dollar amount that you can actually use for planning.
Yeah.
But for it to really be effective and get the reach that you want and actually create awareness, not 9 million impressions, is kind of the general rule of thumb that I like to talk about.
Good tip.
And I'm sure that other representatives from Facebook or media buyers have different rules of thumb. That's just mine. Specifically to the question itself, I would also caution on just getting, and I mentioned this on the webcast, or the webinar, I should say. I'd also caution against getting too specific with your audience. The beauty of the Facebook platform and kind of the auto magic of the Facebook platform is it allows advertisers to find the customers or the potential customers who are most likely to react to the ads themselves. So while set some broad parameters around what you want that audience, what you want that audience to look like, but don't, for a brand awareness campaign, don't put it to something that's got an audience of 50,000, 100,000, because you're not going to move the needle on anything. And say you get to a point where we pair that with some sort of lift test study.
Yeah.
Again, first of all, Facebook or even any of our partners like Nielsen or any of the other ones wouldn't even accept that as a study, because frankly the audience is
Not
too
big
small
enough,
to even do a proper A/B test on.
Yeah.
Look, kind of find what that threshold is for you guys in terms of like that magic number. The one I like to talk about is 9 million, and ensure that your audience is broad enough to deliver against it.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to add to your point, I think you really mentioned something that was important. I mean, in one end, I'm talking about start with the personas, and personas is actually defining a very more specific audience. But to your point, I think when we're talking about the notion of the personas and having this information about who are we trying to engage, we do allow ourselves to be a little bit more flexible, right? We know the main parameters of who are we trying to reach, but we don't get as specific, let's say, in the age group. So we allow ourselves to target a little bit broader, because even in the tests that we have done and some of the campaigns we have run, we learned that actually the sub-audience per se, or the sub-persona that reacted the best wasn't necessarily the one that we thought it would be.
Yeah, that's
so,
gearheads. Exactly
yeah,
that you
yeah.
said
So
earlier,
let's
for sure.
have a little bit of this open mind when
Yeah.
we do the targeting,
Yeah.
so that we have a combination that will make the client feel comfortable,
Yeah.
but at the same time to drive the proper results.
And there's some further magic. That's a great point. There's some further kind of, for lack of a better word, magic on that as well. So let's use this example of a campaign that we're running for website visits, and we're targeting a broad audience for that, based off of some parameters that gives us an audience size, let's say of 2 million people, and we're looking to drive website visits as the objective of that. You're surfacing that campaign to 2 million people. Again, super simple example, and there's a certain segment of those that are actually going to go to the website. So let's say that's, 2%, 5%, whatever it is. What you can actually do through the platform then is you can actually retarget those people who've actually visited the website with more specific creative too.
100%.
So think about it as
Yeah.
how you actually leverage the signals that you're getting through your ad spend to actually deliver more and more specific creative to those individuals, and think about your strategy that way.
I think again that is part of that paradigm shift of putting those ads out there, having a wider audience, but then let the results inform what you need to do next,
100%.
right?
Yeah.
And that's a big shift. Okay, so a question from our audience, Carolina: what can you do to change your ads if they aren't generating results?
So what we try first is we scale as much as we can and use technology to make quick decisions, right? I mean, in terms of tailoring the ads, if you already know that you have a very specific audience segment that is the one that is that you're targeting might not be reacting, think about, well, is there any specific message that you're missing to answer to their needs or the questions? Can you leverage anticipating what is going to make them take action and put it up front into the message? It's not necessarily just change this word. It's just about reflecting into, am I speaking with the right language to the right audience, and just adapt to that. But we normally tend to recommend to run multiple variations at the same time, so that you quickly identify what ad copy is at least having a slightly better performance, and you feed yourself with that information to make some modifications to the versions of the ads.
Yeah, it really changes the way in which the buying team has to work with creative teams. You have to be much more flexible, and there needs to be a dialogue back and forth in terms of what's working and what's not. So you can change and iterate.
Yeah. The other thing I'd add to that, though, is there is a significant smaller business component to this as well.
Yeah.
And part of the beauty of the platform itself is that anyone can get started in Facebook.
Yeah,
ads.
good point.
We work with frankly teams of one who are scaling extremely profitable e-commerce companies, and they're running their own media themselves
On their own, yeah.
And Carolina talked about just the diversity in the actual creative you run. It can also just be things as simple as color changes, things as simple as like small little wording tweaks. It's I do want to emphasize just how straightforward we are attempting to be, or our goal is to be, with the self-service components of the platform.
Very good point, because I think we have lots of people in our audience that actually fits in that category of small, medium.
It shouldn't be intimidating.
Yeah. So Vic, question for you.
Yeah.
Where can we access demographics of our Facebook audience?
Great question.
Kind of a specific question, but
No, that's a great question.
Yeah.
So there is a Facebook Audience Insights tool. Again, if you Google that, I don't have the URL off the top of my head, unfortunately. If you Google that, you'll be able to find that, and you can do some really cool things there. I'm a bit of a data nerd, so I'm just in there sometimes just trying to figure out what audience sizes look like, or just how granular we can get, or how specific we can get, like whether we want to look at everyone with a title of lawyers within these specific municipalities with this kind of range around it, who went to these schools. Like, you can do some really cool things. And the other piece as well is also in Ads Manager, when you're setting up your demographics on there, you're going to get a size on what so you're going to get an idea around the size of the audience you're looking to target with your audience itself.
Yeah, good. In terms of the argument, I think we've got a few questions here from some people that they're part of a social team and they may have a very small paid budget. They want to increase that budget. They have to go to their boss. They have to go to the chief marketing officer or the VP of marketing, or if it's a smaller business, the actual boss of the business, to get that money. What's the argument or the best points that you guys have to arm them to have that conversation to get more?
I will refer them to the slide that I shared on the webinar, where actually it's just a small study that was done by Kensho that actually shows that there's a 30% increase in revenue over ad spend when we run paid search and social. So if you're running the paid search campaigns, but you were having a problem just trying to convince your client or your boss to invest in social, just point them to stats. They like numbers and stats, and I think just if you show them that other companies are doing it successfully and that they are missing the opportunity, that's a good starting point.
Yeah, how about you, Ben?
Yeah, there's a couple of elements to it, right? Part of it is the fact that when Facebook first went commercial, it was about likes and comments and shares, and there was a lot of education that went there around that. And now, frankly, it's not. Like, it needs to be about business results. So, kind of in that specific, I'm going to answer this in a couple of ways. In that specific example, I would implore that individual or that team to really talk about the real business results that ad spend is going to drive, and use that as the measuring stick on what they're going to be evaluated against. And if that's in a perfect world or in an ideal setting, that should align with whatever the CMO or whatever their manager,
business objectives.
the business objectives that their managers are looking to drive. And if there's that alignment, and you've got an open and reasonable manager, there should be a pretty straightforward sell-through on that, assuming that the campaigns work and the objectives are driving through. Kind of at a more macro level, when I meet with CMOs or investors as part of my day-to-day who have been skeptical about Facebook, I think the stats and all that are great, and I think they do a great job in convincing, or a great job in just talking about like just the shift that's actually happened to mobile, the amount of time that's being spent on Facebook, the amount of people on Facebook. But there's actually no better example I can give than our own personal experiences.
Like, I use that as well.
Like we talk to CMOs, and they're judged on the costs that they spend on the marketing and what they're actually getting in the outset. And meanwhile, on the weekends when they're out there, like their phones are always with them, right? They're in the grocery store. They're with them when they're taking their kids to
look
school.
at your own behavior.
Look
and your CMO.
And then all of a sudden, when you walk in the door, that goes out the door. And I understand why, because of like the objectives you're being held to. But you walk in the door, and all that goes out the door, and you go into old habits, let's call them, not necessarily bad habits, but old habits. There's a dichotomy there, and that actually, I find, brings in a much more interactive discussion. Because when you force people to, not force, when you ask people to like really look at their own behaviors and kind of extrapolate that in terms of what's happening out in the world, it humanizes it a lot more, and really complements, the stats and all the other pieces we can put forward.
Last question. And it's actually related to that, but what should B2B marketers focus on while creating a social ad campaign for Facebook? Because I think it is related to that, because I get that all the time when I speak. It's around, well, it doesn't work for business to business. So what do you say to that?
You'd be surprised. I think it comes back to like getting really focused, and I feel like a broken record, but it is an important point around getting really focused on what it is that you're looking to drive. We have SaaS companies who are B2B marketers, and they're looking to drive trials. Well, our lead ads product is fantastic for that, because it can look at the signals that the individuals or the customers are inputting, as well as all of these other signals that they're getting, and you can target those those kinds of customers better. We've also got customers who have a desktop product and they've got an app product, and they looked at that and they realized that their customer lifetime value of people who use both is actually higher. So what they were able to do is upsell upload a list of their customers who only use their desktop product and target them to download the apps themselves.
mobile app.
And they've seen an uptick in the overall customer lifetime value as well. I'd say, again, those are just two examples around lead generation and kind of increase in customer lifetime value, but there's a plethora of them out there.
Yeah, great, good. Okay, so we got to wrap up. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Thank you guys. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
This is fun.
And great insights. So thank you very much for the webinar and this after show. Next time we do this, we'll have a rose, and we'll actually call it after.
I want the rose.
Right, after the rose.
Kind of reminded me of the post Game of Thrones webinars.
You guys didn't fight enough. There wasn't enough drama here for an after the rose ceremony. So you can find out more about social ads. There's all kinds of resources that we're adding to the comment section. You'll have seen it during the chat here. We've got the ultimate guide to social ads, the link to the webinar. If you found value in this HootLive Q&A, make sure you comment and share this video with your friends. And of course, like our Facebook page to keep up to date with more useful social media content. Yes, like. And I have to announce the swag winner for the swag. So
Hey!
Mandy Baston, DM us on Facebook, and we'll be in touch. We'll figure out how to get this to you. So thank you very much for tuning in.
Congrats, guys.
And thank you. And that's it from Vancouver.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.